Coming up, a new Christmas cross up at the Florida Capitol, renewing the debate over religious displays in a government building.
Also, Florida's health department investigating whether a high school is causing hundreds of its former students to get sick. But first,
we were lucky to be getting out of here alive. Then I decided, well, we're just fortunate, not lucky. I don't know if luck had anything to do with it.
Survivors describe the terrifying moments during Monday's train derailment in Washington state. Investigators are still trying to figure out just what caused that crash.
They do know this. The train was going nearly 3 times the recommended speed as it rounded a curve. Chris Martinez has the very latest in our top story tonight.
An oversized load truck hauled away one of 13 mangled train cars that flew off the tracks in Washington state. Crews still have to remove the locomotive.
It weighs over 270,000 pounds. It is extremely heavy. It is going to take quite a feat to get that out of there.
The NTSB says speed may have been a factor in yesterday's deadly derailment. The event data recorder shows the train was traveling at 80 miles per hour in a 30-mile-per-hour zone. At least 3 people were killed and dozens were injured on the maiden voyage of this newly opened train line. The Associated Press is reporting investigators are looking into whether the engineer was distracted by an employee in training in the locomotive cab. According to radio chatter, the engineer was bleeding from his head after the wreck, and both eyes were swollen shut.
The NTSB says it's been recommending safety features like automatic braking, known as positive train control, for decades.
It certainly does prevent accidents that are overspeed accidents that cause derailments.
The former NTSB chair says there's one simple reason the technology isn't in use everywhere.
It's because of the dollars that need to be spent that's delayed its implementation.
This 15-mile stretch of track in Washington was a $180 million project aimed at speeding up service by bypassing a more curvy route with single-track tunnels and freight traffic. Chris Martinez, CBS News, DuPont, Washington.
One of the victims killed in that derailment was an employee of a local transit agency. And developing right now, 11 tourists are dead after a fatal bus crash in Mexico. At least 20 others are hurt. Miami-based Royal Caribbean Cruises says the crash involved passengers from 2 of its ships. Officials believe the driver lost control and traveled off of the roadway.
It's day 2 of the grand jury hearing into the death of an FSU fraternity pledge. This is a live look outside the courtroom right now. More than 50 people have been called to testify in the case. Many of them were at a party the night before Andrew Coffey was found dead.
Today, some behavior of a few people outside the courtroom was turning heads. Our Erica Fernandez tweeted about some fraternity members joking and laughing. Fraternity brothers and family members are waiting anxiously to learn what will come from the jury.
Mike Vasalinda has the story from the courthouse.
One by one, Pi Kappa Phi fraternity members were called to testify. Most spent 10 to 15 minutes behind the grand jury's closed doors. 20-year-old Andrew Coffey died November 3rd after a night of drinking at his off-campus house. The cause of death has yet to be made public. The medical examiner said she couldn't talk about it after her testimony.
You weren't in there very long.
No.
Is that usual?
It depends on the case. It varies.
The brother who allegedly purchased the alcohol spent an hour with investigators before testifying. He is the only one so far to have spoken to the grand jury without immunity for their testimony.
It should concern him. My guess is that he's probably already made a deal with the state.
Lawyers who accompanied their clients into the grand jury room say they weren't surprised by the questions being asked. Under oath themselves, they couldn't tell us anything else. As 3 frat members waited to testify, the theme from Law & Order played on their cell phone, raising questions over how seriously they're taking the investigation. Seriously, says attorney Joe Bodiford.
I think that any 18, 19-year-old that's called for a grand jury investigation where somebody's died is absolutely going to be afraid.
Toby Norris represents a frat member from Utah.
Will they get to the truth, do you think?
I mean, that's the intent of a grand jury, to get to the truth, yeah.
All total, more than 50 fraternity members were subpoenaed to testify. Mike Vasalinda, WCTV Eyewitness News, Tallahassee.
And as we said, those lawyers who accompanied clients into the hearing say they're not surprised by the questions being asked, but they cannot comment further.
Also happening in Tallahassee, a religious holiday display is now up in the Florida Capitol. The Knights of Columbus putting up this cross today.
Capital City correspondent Mariel Carbone was there as they unveiled the cross. Mariel, what can you tell us?
Eden, right now that cross is the only religious display in the rotunda, a far cry from just 3 years ago when there was quite a ruckus about a satanic display being placed next to a nativity scene. Now the cross that was placed there today, it's called Prince of Peace, Born to Die, and depicts the nativity scene painted on it, as well as some other Catholic symbols, including the Christmas star and footprints in the sand. Now members telling me that the display, it's all about expressing their Christian faith in a public forum.
It is a part of expression of our freedom of speech, and we have been doing this now since 2014. This is the third year that we will be doing this, and it's important to be able to go to our State House and express our religious beliefs.
Now, in years past, multiple religious and non-religious groups displaying symbols here, including the mentioned nativity scene and satanic display, as well as a menorah and even a Festivus pole made out of beer cans. Julie, Eden, Mike Worth saying that the Knights of Columbus, that they welcome other displays to be out in that rotunda and would be interested in welcoming that dialogue that those displays would bring. Reporting live from the Governor's Club, Mariel Carbone, WCTV Eyewitness News.
All right, Mariel, thank you so much. And certainly those displays always generate conversation and sometimes controversy as well.
Been quiet so far this year. All right, Mariel, thank you. We go to FAMU now, and Christmas coming early for one family thanks to the university's police department.
Our Lenitra Bennett is there for the big surprise. She joins us now. Lenitra.
Julie and Eden, the gifts were for a mother and her 5 kids. You can just tell the excitement and gratefulness in their voices and tears. Just a beautiful thing for those receiving and giving.
All of these presents belong to you. Every last one of them.
Kazaria was speechless when she saw that entire stack of Christmas gifts was all for her. The 10-year-old was moved to tears. Her siblings, ages 10, 8, 5, and 1, all with their very own pile of presents. Their mom also got some. FAMU police presented the gifts this afternoon. It's a part of the department's 3rd annual Stuff the Cruiser program.
I feel very excited. I'm overwhelmed. I thank God. It's a blessing, because you never know, and I'm really excited.
The kids got to open one present today, and as you can see, there will be plenty more to rip open on Christmas Day. Officers helping the family load them up, filling up 2 separate cars. The program is financed through FAMU PD's Amnesty program. It's interesting because the officers give students who qualify a reduction on their parking fines if the student brings in a gift card. Those gift cards go toward fulfilling a local family's Christmas list. Isn't that awesome, guys?
That is awesome, and it's worth it just to see the
reaction
look on the girl's face there, seeing all those gifts for her.
Such generosity.
Wonderful stuff. Good to see. Time to check your weather now. A live look outside looks a lot like yesterday. The sunshine is there, although we had the clouds throughout the day today. Again, and Julie, it felt muggy. It just
I was
doesn't
going to
feel
say,
right.
it's past balmy even. It is muggy out there, Mike. A lot of people having to ditch their jackets and go out in short sleeves today.
Back up around 80 degrees.
Yeah.
Now this morning it was the fog that was the big problem. Not everybody had the thick stuff, but it got an early start. And tonight we'll likely see some more of that fog again. But typically this time of year we see daytime highs. The 30-year average is in the low to mid 60s. Well, that's what we had for morning lows, low to mid 60s. And I compare that to the current numbers. Look at all the 70s from Dothan all the way down to Orlando, and of course our viewing area too. 70s are going to stick around until we get right around Christmas. That's when it looks like now we will start to see some cooler air. So if that's on your wish list, we do have some of that, but there'll be some other stuff happening in between. So far, just a lot of cloud cover, but I do expect to see at least a few showers around for your Wednesday. So we'll look more closely at those. Look more closely, too, of course, at that holiday weekend forecast and the next week coming up in just a couple more minutes.
All right. Something just doesn't feel right out there right now. We'll be looking for that shot of cold air. Mike, thank you.
And still to come on Eyewitness News at 5, a former high school in the Tampa Bay area is now under scrutiny from state health officials.
They're looking into whether it's a cancer cluster sickening hundreds of people who used to go to school there. That's our health alert next.